So I just want to let
Yep.
you know, make sure you know I got nothing up my sleeve. This is an empty directory here I just created here called payroll Seiden. And I do the good old code dot and up comes VS Code. Now, what do I have on my sleeves here? Well, I do have code for I. That's kind of, and it sounds like you guys are all on top of that because the Project Explorer is layered on top of that. And Project Explorer is your VS Code extension that gives you a good GUI to Bob. So we got Project Explorer, and we also have another extension, IBM IBM I Project Explorer. And we have Sanjula here who really was key in creating this. So if you install these two things, you can do all the work. Now there is another project that Liam has been doing on the side among his many, and that I would like to help him with, and that's VS Code dash source orbit. Okay. Yeah, it's not yet on the marketplace. In fact, we were in discussions yesterday about doing that. So right now, so you see this VS Code dash source orbit. The way to get this right now is to go to that GitHub project, and you can build the extension from there. But we do hope to get it uh, on on Microsoft registry, so we can find it just like everything else shortly, within the next kind of couple weeks, I think. So yes, now so I'll show you what that enables and what it doesn't. So here we have net, as I said, empty directory, nothing's here. But you'll notice I'm in the plain files view, there's an additional view contributed by Project Explorer. And right, it says like I don't know anything about this project. So if I click on this button, it creates the metadata JSON for a project. This is kind of a cool concept. That means the project's kind of self-describing, knows how to find all its bits, etc. So this is a demo for Seiden Group. And so I'll give it a description, what this really does. Let me just clear up all these things here. So what this creates this iProj JSON here. Now you can go ahead and just like add stuff yourself here if you wanted, because we have Content Assist that works. Whoops, Content Assist that will help you add things. But what I'm going to show you today is going to be more of how you can use the UI to build everything. Um, so, well, I think the question implied that how can I get some stuff working? And what I'm going to show you, which is really cool, is you can grab your stuff off QSys and get it working. So to get stuff off QSys, I'm going to connect to I. Now this looks like it's unique to Project Explorer, but really under the covers, you can see it's using Liam's code for I thing. So I'm just going to grab a connection to one of my Toronto IBMIs here. Next to it normally as everything else. Now, I did tweak one thing. I happen to like, I'm going to expand here. I happen to like the layout, close these guys here, of having my project IFS browser right here on the files view, as opposed to, by default, you'll see it sitting here. Whoops. And so all I do is I open up that side panel and I grab my IFS browser and project browser, put on the side panel, and now they're available everywhere. So wherever I work, I still can browse my stuff on the IBM, both in QSys and IFS. Now, the sample I'm going to migrate today is from this payroll, tiny payroll application. And here's my original library here. It's got it here. And I can just kind of show you, if I open it up, what's in it. It's really trivial. We got one program, and it's basically a table maintenance, a file maintenance. It's got three different payroll tables of employees, projects, and reasons. It's got an include file just for demo purposes, and it's being driven by a display file. So that's all the moving pieces here. So how am I going to get this into a buildable in GitHub project? So I'm going to right click on this library and I'm going to click on this migrate source. This is the magic. One little action here. It's going to pop up this nice little wizard here and say, okay, there's the library. Use the default CSID. I'm putting it into this workspace. If you had multiple workspace roots, you could pick, but I've only got one. I'm going to do a little extra magic. I'm going to show you what it is. So I'm going to, as we move everything from QSys to IFS, pretty well, most things can be represented, but we know there's those 50 character member text that gets lost. Well, rather than losing it, we're going to stick it in a special comment at the head of the file. And Bob is smart enough to pull it back out and create your objects with those same member texts. The other little option we have here is we're going to choose to lowercase the files just because we're tired of these uppercase shouting at us. It's an option. If you prefer uppercase, you have it. Now this middle tab is being enabled by that source orbit extension that Liam's written. And I'm going to show you some of the cool things it does to kind of clean up stuff. We rename include files to be, and we fix the include, so use the IFS syntax as opposed to QSys syntax. But this is really cool because source orbit basically has an idea of what depends on what it's able to generate the rules.make, which is how you get the dependency build out of this. We'll show you that in a second. And here, this is just saying how many of these source physicals do you want to migrate? I'm going to migrate all of them. I hit my big button and it goes off and migrates them one source physical at a time. It's doing it in the IFS, and then it's going to create a tar, download it into my workspace, clean itself up. So that's all magic under the covers. Don't need to worry. At the end of the day, you have all your source here. So here I have the exact same source you saw up there. It's all here. It's got a few additional files we're going to look at in a second. The rules.make and IBM JSON. I'll describe them as we go along. So we got all this stuff here. I would like this to go into a Git project, all right? Now, as you're familiar with, we have this Git nice view here. And this is a really cool button here. I'm going to create a brand new repo just for this right now. It's going to go in my personal Edmund Reinhardt payroll Seiden. I just created a brand new public repo there. You can go check it out yourself. In fact, if I open this URL, there it is. There's all my code sitting in GitHub, and it's also sitting here. So one thing, I mean, I shouldn't really automate this, but just for documentation purposes, it's kind of nice for this project to know where its repository is. So I'm going to say, give me the repository, paste it in. Now I've got a new field here. And of course, Git says, oh, you've changed something. It tells you what you've changed. I can go ahead and add that as a commit. We're now using Git, right? I can push that. If I go over to GitHub, sure enough, if I look at my iProj JSON, it indeed has that thing misindented. So we can see Git works. Okay, so that's one way we want to synchronize things with Git and share it with the world. The other place is, well, we want to synchronize, we want to push this to IFS so that we can build it in a nice dependency build. So that's what we're going to do next. That's kind of what the question was asking. So we can see the next thing we're being guided to do here is under this project, where is the source going to be deployed? This is the same concept of deploy that we have in Code4i. It means I'm going to copy it from my local workspace into a directory in the IFS. And by default, it's going to be my home directory, and we put it into some build subdirectory and then the name of the workspace here. So we're going to copy it into here, say, sure, that's as good as any. We'll take that default. It said, do you want to deploy right now? I could. I'm just going to show you a little bit about what that means. This button here does the same thing. So I don't need to do it in a second. This here, this source view kind of shows you what will be deployed. It's kind of showing you what the difference is between what you have locally and what you have in the IFS and what would be deployed. Now, you've got different options of determining what that's going to be. Compare uses an MD5 hash compare, so it determines exactly what the difference is and moves everything. You can just say grab everything, grab only the things whose timestamp has changed, which is obviously the fastest. It doesn't have to do any communication. Or I can even use Git to say what's being worked on in this current commit or branch. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it with that commit. I'm going to hit my deploy, and I'm going to create a new folder thing here in my filters, sorry, to say I want to look at this thing. Just so you know, I'm not blowing smoke. So we said it was going to be payroll site. And if I open that, sure enough, a directory exists and it's got the same contents. Hooray. Now I have the stuff up there. I want to build it, right? So there's nothing to, we can see it's the set to deploy is empty. We're in sync. Well, when I build it, what library list am I using? And what's my target curlib and stuff like that? So for a let's say I'm going to set my curlib to say pay program, and I'm gonna start off with this is the main one. Let's say the official location, and there it is. It's my curlib. What happened in the iProj JSON is that it set an additional thing called curlib here, and by default, things get compiled into the curlib. You could override it using something called object lib, and we'll get to that in a minute, but it defaults to curlib. So if I build the stuff, it's going to end up in pay program. Now, I do probably want to clear. You'll see I have this object libraries that kind of knows if I'm pointed at these things, it's probably the set of libraries I'm interested. I don't have to now make my custom object browser kind of convenient. And I'm going to say, I'm going to blow this away, clear it. So there's nothing in it. So we're going to build everything. And then you'll see how the Delta works in a second. Why is that asking for a source file name? When I say clear library, it says you want to clear it, and I say yes. Boom, it's cleared. All right. And sure enough, if I were to, even use Liam's, it also shows that it's empty. All right, it's empty. Now I want to build. It's kind of simple. You just hit build. I'm going to run build. Now you see there's a convenient shortcut here for on the Mac. It's Command Shift B, and which allows us to really have a really fast turnaround set for the edit, compile, debug cycle. Now, the Project Explorer and the iProj JSON isn't tied to Bob. It can be used with any build mechanism. It's been used with Arcad's build mechanism and others. And so really what build says is when you do a build, then run this command. Actually, it says first deploy to the IFS and run the command. I mean, you can even simplify. We're assuming that Code4i has instructed you to put packages bin on the path. And there you go. This is all you need. Make I build. Now you can make any command. You can use gmake or, like I said, Arcad or others. And here are the variables that are available to you. And we're going to see that we can say compile the active editor file in the editor, active editor later on. So it did a deploy as you're seeing. It's making sure everything's in sync. Then it runs the build. We see the make I build says, okay, I got to go build all the tables. There's the employee, the project, reason master files. Then I got to create the display file. And seem to have an issue here. Objects not copied. Probably wasn't built yet. Okay. Not successful. We can see the terminal here already saying it's not successful. You can also open the stuff in an editor if you're interested. So, oh, you know what? Now, the PayPugum, we should see either here in the library list or here, we should see the set of tables were built, right? Employee master. So interestingly, the display file was built as well. How else can I tell what went wrong? We have this convenient thing called a job log. This is unique to Project Explorer, and it's just as powerful as your job log. In fact, we have the second level help and everything else that happened. So something seemed to have gone wrong here, although when we look at it, it looked like things went perfectly smoothly. We tweaked the library list to set it up. We do that on, so the library list gets set up on every build command. And then, well, this is DDS, so we fake it out by copying to source physical into temp, and then we compiled it. Yeah, there's really nothing wrong here. Maybe the program. Why did the program not get built? I go to the payroll program. Now, I said builds everything. The other thing you can do is a compile, which you can kind of launch from here, or that's Command-Shift-C. So if I go Command-Shift-C, it's going to try to compile the program, but hey, you haven't set the command yet. And you can see this is, again, make I now. Instead of build, it's compile. And compile lets you subset. Say, I want to compile this particular source file, and it's going to figure out, well, what object does that mean? And it will build that and any dependencies. So, but it will only build those things. It won't build the entire project. So it will build payroll program and any dependencies. So it's redeploying because, yeah, there was much to deploy. So now it's compiling. It figured, oh, the corresponding program is payroll program. Now we do have kind of a unique mapping of file extension to kind of object type. And yeah, it seemed to work perfectly. So everything got built here. So if I do Control-Shift-B, it's going to probably say everything's built. There's nothing left to build. And go do a build, it says, yep, everything's ready. It does remind me, I didn't tell you what things did about the renaming. So we see Q Protosource, this was just RPGLE over here. It got renamed RPGLE Inc. because we don't want to build something for a module or something. It's an include file. And we figured out based on the source orbit knew this is an include file, rename it as such. And then we did rename the payroll program to say this, we know this RPG is actually compiling a program. So we'll make the extension unambiguous. So, you know, looking at if it's going to module or a program. It's just RPG leads the module. And we also fixed the include right here. And it used to be, if we looked at here, that it was the comma, the QSYS syntax. You see how it got updated to be the IFS syntax, including the heading. Now, this is a self-contained project. Maybe we don't want to, you know, put all this relative paths in here. We could simplify, and I could say, no, I want to use the how the project keep track of its include path. Now, if I just compile this as is, it should fail. I'm going to hit build. That was Command Shift V, by the way, the same thing as hitting build over here, but it's just a lot faster, as you can see. Now it should have deployed the payroll program because I changed it, and it says, oh, it failed. And if we go look at the problems view here, we see here are all the reasons, the compile errors. We basically took the event files, downloaded them, turned them into diagnostic. So if I look at this, yeah, sure enough, it could not find that include file. Well, what if I took this directory and said, add it to the include paths? Sure enough, now under include paths, we're going to see a new entry called qproto source. What that, under the covers, because there's no magic here. Basically, we added it to the include path, and you can have multiple, and you can reorder them here. Now I could either do a full build, or I'm going to show off Control Shift C to only compile this particular source file or anything that that object needs. Goes ahead, rebuilds it, and this time it's successful. Notice it didn't feel, even if I did a build, it didn't feel like I had to rebuild all the tables, all the things. So this is the beauty of using Bob and Make, is that it's dependency-based build. It only builds the things that are needed, right? If I were to now touch the actual file and say something in here, let's say I'm going to say Alan is great, and I save that. And if now I do a full build, should it build? Should it have to build the tables? No, it's not going to build the tables, but it will know from the dependencies. Oh, actually, this is a bug that we got to fix, Liam. So it should have known that the program depended on the include, and it didn't. I'm going to fix that. So let's look at these rules.make. That's how this dependency stuff works. So the top one says, it can say anything, but it's using here which subdirectories I should look into. So the cool thing, better than make, Bob can look into multiple directories, and we'll be able to consolidate that into having dependencies across multiple directories. It's very flexible. So he says, look into qrpgle source and run whatever's in that rules.make. So here it says, the one object you need to build here is the payroll program, and it depends on the display file and all of these things. What it forgot to say is that it also depends on error table.rpgle inc. I have to open an issue on that. Because if it had said that, then when we make a change and I do my build now, we should see that it will trigger not only a build of the program, because the program depends on the change file. So it's using make syntax, right? So we see that that's all working really cool. We can see now what include files. You can, oh yeah. Now, I hard-coded this pay program, which is really bad practice, right? I am making my changes right into the master library, right? Bad, bad, bad. I really want to use my own, and I want, say, Liam or Sanjula or whoever else to use their own library. So I don't like that this is hard coded. So I'm going to assign this to a variable instead. Well, it's got a variable actually. The variable is here, and I want to say pay program ER, right? So now I'm using a variable to say which library, and that way we can change that library when a different developer pulls out of the same GitHub and works, or when the official build, the GitHub action kicks out the official build, it sets its own variable. So that allows us to be very flexible. We remember the things that are common, and we allow flexibility for things that are going to be unique. Now, here is something that you couldn't do even with iProject and other things that it's common pattern that people want to build their tables into a different library than their source. So I want this, I want the tables to go into a pay data library as opposed to and so I'm going to go and I'm going to say, take the paid data. And fortunately, I don't have a way of doing that easily here. I'm going to do this multiple steps. Or I could just edit it, but I'm just going to show you. Say, I really want the paid data to also be at the head of the beginning of the library list. So it picks up the database tables from a different library. So it's going to go ahead and insert that. We see pay data is here. It's got stuff from the past, but I'm going to clear that because we haven't populated those. And what I want to do is say, okay, that's the general how I want to do it. But really, I want to configure this as a variable because I want obviously, if I'm changing the data tables, I want to have my own copy. So now I've created a new variable called data lib, and it's going to have the value of pay data. But if I was going to do this properly, I should probably change it to my own, right? Pay data underscore ER. And now I've got my own copy of where I want to compile the programs, where I want to compile the data, right? And see, is there anything in here? There isn't, so it's empty. So what I want now, I want to say all tables should go into this library. And we can do this at basically at a directory level. We can say for a given directory, we can override what CSID, say you've got your German or your Chinese or whatever, NLS, or I can say what the target library should be for compiles coming from that directory. And I'm going to say, yeah, the target library is going to be data lib or anything in there. So I am going to just blow everything away. We know that's empty. I'm going to clear my hey pugam so there's nothing in either of these. I expand them really. I'm not going to look at the library list. This is the nice subset of libraries that I want. You see everything set here. They are empty. Well, I didn't clear yet. They are empty now. They're both empty. If I do a build now, the question is, will this nicely put the program and display file in the Pugam directory and all the tables in the data directory? I do my Control-Shift-B, very fast, very convenient. And it did have to update the iProj JSON. Everything fails. What's wrong? I don't know. Let's take a look. So didn't compile the data tables. Why? What's the problem with them? So either, no, I'm not seeing serious problems here. So I'm going to look at the job log. Maybe the job log is going to tell me. So we can see each of the, compiles is going to have its own job log here. I'm going to look at the most recent one. Successful. No, that's not the most recent. So what went wrong here? I'll open this. Please, no such file. So, okay. I'm going to show. So this get created. Looks to me like things kind of work, but then it was trying to write to the spool file. Did it? And the spool file failed. So we keep track of, you'll see here, not only do we see the commands and the messages and even at the second level help, we even have this thing here where we can show you, we can copy the command to rerun it ourselves. We can show you kind of the output we say spool file, but it's the standard output. Gets also stored in these dot logs, but it kind of got cleared here. I don't know exactly why. If I take a particular table, I'm going to take this table and say, what happens if I just compile this? And he goes ahead, he does the compile, says that table goes to this file. That file got built successfully. So I don't know. I think there's just, never try the whole build again. I think that was just a glitch. Yeah, so it's everything's getting compiled successfully, except for the master display file. I don't know why we're seeing multiple attempts having to go here. Not very deterministic. So now we should be able to see, now we see here, the files all got built. Display file looks to me like he got created too. I don't know why he's reporting an error when there isn't one. I should now be able to see the spool file. So here's the spool file. For the RPG, you'll actually see the compile listing if you asked for it. So I'm gonna build it again, and this time it's gonna build. All that's left is the program. Everything else built successfully. Everything's built successfully now. Okay. I'm demonstrate a lot of things. I mean, it's very cool that now you see the flexibility with your library stuff. You see here it did build the tables in their own library, the program display file in its own library. We have freedom. We can do things like, that was the reason why we had these ugly RSN MST was because we were restricted by IFS. If I want it by QSYS, if I have freedom. I can call this what it really is, which is reason master table, right? And what do I have to do to make that work? I just have to say this file depends on reason master. And of course, source object could even do this for you, source orbit. You see, there's flexibility here, right? I can do things. I could pull, say, I want my program out at the root. I can restructure things in a way that's intuitive. I'm not limited to, the reason why QRPG source had to be separate from QDDS source was because back in the day, your member type didn't help make things unique, right? So now I can put them all in the same directory. They're not going to collide even if they had the same name because the file extension does disambiguate. What would this take? It would mean just I have to take, this rule here and put it into the root rule where the source lives. And I'm no longer going into QRPG source. And so I can even blow away the whole directory. I don't need it anymore. Things are getting simpler. I love simple. This guy's got a rule here. This display file, sure enough, it depends on it depends on the 3 tables. So we'll put that into the main rules.make, right? So you can see here, the first thing you depend on, it's the actual source. And Bob has a rule that says, okay, there's a display file to file rule, and then the other things are going to be used as dependencies. So same like there's a pugum to RPG to pugum rule, and that Bob takes care of it. So you don't have, it really abstracts a lot of things. You can even override and things like what you want certain compile actions parameters to be. You can say you hit tab and you would say text equals foo or something like that. You can override text. You say compilation or maybe source view or any of those things you want to override. You can do here. You have the ability, if you don't like the standard behavior, you could write your own rule, but then you lose out on the job logging and all that kind of cool stuff and the setting up a library list. All right, so I just wanted to show that this is very simple now. I can blow away the Q2D as source. This is not necessary. We put the one file up here, blow it away. You see how things are getting simpler, right? We're not forced into the square peg of how QSys used to work because of punch cards and because it's actually relational tables underneath the covers, all that stuff. We don't need that here. That's probably a bug of source orbit to do that in a directory where there is nothing to compile. That just includes, yeah, we need this guy here because he's telling us to override the object library. We're not overriding the CSID, so I don't even need that. So we're now kind of down to a minimal set here. We've got our data. I could call it just data. I could call this includes. I mean, I have the ability. I have flexibility, naming, nesting. I can go as deep as I want. I can make it as intuitive as I want. I'm not limited to old QSys organization. I've been talking for a while, so I'm going to stop and say if there's any questions.
Any questions? So Edmund, so just for people, some people might not be familiar with, might have been not familiar with Bob and what its goal is.
Okay, I jumped in a bit too fast.
Well, no, I should have introduced it. I was answering
Right.
the specific question, but maybe you could just say, like, what's Bob for? What's it an alternative to? What would people have done otherwise, and how does it improve our lives?
Okay, well, hopefully the demo has kind of giving you a taste of what it's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to build things out of local projects, Git control. Well, it doesn't have to be Git. Git is nice. Could be any other source control. But the fact that you're in the local stream files gives you the full power of the whatever tooling you have here, clear in this case, VS Code. And you see how that gives us the full Git tooling. The fact that it's normal. Your code is now in normal stuff stored in Git like any other normal source and has access to all the other open source tooling. So, and what we're trying to, now you don't have to have it in a local VS Code project. You could do the same thing in the terminal. I could just as easily, if I go to Liam's cool command shift J, and I could SSH, and I could do all the stuff from the command line, which is also beautiful because that allows you to run the same build as part of your pipeline, as part of your, your QA build and so on, production build can all be the same. So the point is you have a dependency-based build. Your source is in IFS. It can be stored in Git, and you'll build all and only the things that are impacted by your change, as opposed to having a huge long CL script that you have to maintain, and you have to build everything every time to be sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm rambling a bit.
That's okay. How does this compare to some like what you know about commercial change management tools? Does it do some of what they do, or just totally
So
different because it's connected to based on Git, or what do you think?
So as far as change management, yeah, we are using Git. And so
Mm-hmm.
we have all the power, and you can see now I can do all my stuff here. I can say, I want to stage everything here and say this is my final thing for Alan Seiden. Maybe I'll even do that so that everyone has access to this. As you can see the progression kind of
Mm-hmm.
final version. And it's all there under Edmund Reinhardt. So you can see it's all in Git here, and you guys can all download and play with it as yourself and walk through the commits. So the beauty is
Great.
you've got access to Git.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what other source control management, well, there's the older versions on try to do the source control on QSys, right? And
Mm-hmm.
even modern ones, even ARCAD and
Mm-hmm.
others, they still are limited by having to map to QSys and having 10 character, 2-level hierarchy, all the QSys limitations,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas we're totally broken free from that here. Um,
Mm.
th- so you've got the advantage of now, of course, they have much more robust impact analysis systems. They might be able to tell you far more if you change this field exactly what it'll impact.
Mm-hmm.
You do get value for the money you pay for them, but
Right.
here you get tremendous value for free and you're in control. This is open source. You're all welcome to contribute and see everything here. There's no secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got this you're no longer tied to a lot of the legacy aspects of having to build in QSys.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Great. Like Bob is something I always just kept hearing about,
Mhm.
but I think because I'm not personally building all these things myself, it wasn't something that I kind of picked up on. So let's see, the person who asked the question, did you did you get your question answered? Was that good? I assume it was.
Yes, thank you, Edmund, for the thorough explanation that that you have given for us. And I do have a couple of questions to follow up with. The
Sure.
migrate source context menu
Mhm.
that showed us earlier, that
Right.
comes from the source orbit extension or the project explorer extension? Where does it come from?
Right. So I'll do that again. So when I say migrate source, this is actually Project Explorer
Okay, because
provides.
I seldom use
However,
that.
with this middle tab here,
Hmm.
this functionality comes from Source Orbit. So if Source Orbit is not there, these things are not done and this tab does not appear.
Got
So
it.
in
Okay.
that case, you will get everything migrated locally
Hmm.
in stream files, but you'll have to generate your own rules.make and fix up your include,
Okay,
etc.
got it. So, and to be able to create those make files, we have to have the source orbit installed, right? Without that, we cannot uh, create
Well,
those make
the
files.
beauty of Source Orbit is that it automatically generates rules.make. You can manually create them, right? So without Source Orbit, you would not have rules.make, and you saw that these aren't horribly difficult to do, right? I just list my subdirectories here, and then within them, I say, okay, this file depends on this source. That was obvious. Now you may have to look in the source to say, yeah, but this display file depends on these 3 database files. Yeah, that would take a little bit more investigation. Source Orbit saved you by figuring that stuff out, but it's not
Hmm.
rocket science. It's just effort.
Right, because since I don't have the access for the source orbit, I was trying to fiddle around with the Bob, because
Mm,
there was one GitHub repository with the name of company system
yes, that's
where there
Liam.
was a makefile present.
Yes.
And when I cloned that repository to my I, and I was able to build it using the the make build command
Mm,
via the paste
it's I know.
terminal.
Yeah. Hmm.
So
Yeah.
then I tried to create a similar repository, and
Hmm.
I was trying to create those make files by hand. You know what I mean? I know
Yeah. Yeah.
just by typing them,
Yeah.
but I couldn't figure out like what is required and what is the format to type that make file. So that
Mm,
was my original thing that was, that intrigued me to learn more about this Bob and then
sure.
the source orbit.
Now, there is documentation. If we go to that describes everything here in detail. So let me just point to that as well. T and IBMI Bob is the repo name in GitHub. There it
Yeah,
is.
I thought I saw the documentation, but it wasn't completed enough, but I'm
Here.
not sure.
Right. So I'm going to go to the documentation, and even if it isn't, I welcome your feedback. We can all fix it up. So here's the documentation I got from the README of IBMI Bob. Um, Defining targets using rules.make. That sounds like where you're at, right? And the layout, there's 2 sections. There's a subdrs declaration and a rules area. So the subdrs This is based on the Bob recursive example, which is a very complete example.
Yep, I know.
Size almost every file, a member type. So you can see the subdirectories just basically says what subdirectories should be considered. So if a subdirectory is not here, it will not be included in the makefile. And then there's also the rules, and we said the rules is you have the object. So this is what you'd appear if you did an ls and qsys, right? You'd see this database file has a .file extension, right? And
Right.
it comes from a physical file source, which is local to that directory. So for every object that's built from the local things, you're going to have an entry of the object : source. And then beyond that, this is optionally, if you want the dependency stuff to work nicely, then you would list any dependencies. In this case, this database file depends on this references database fields from another database file. So
yeah, I was actually trying to compile a stored procedure, and then I thought I put that inside the tables, I guess, like, but I'm not sure. But it didn't compile. Then I thought, okay, maybe I have to specify it differently to compile the SQL stored procedures. So
I see that I got to update that in the documentation. We've moved this to IBM as a official one, but I'm just going to look at the stored procedure example and Bob recursive example. So if I look at the SQL source here, there's a procedure, right?
I see. So the
So,
extension as the file has to have the extension as SQL PRC. I thought.
yes, SQL PRC. Yeah. So anything. Yeah. Here now. That's the other thing I should show you in the docs. If you go to features here, you'll see here are all the object types and the extensions to build them. And then there's a new concept called a CL pseudosource. If you want to build objects of this type from CL, then you put the CL command in a file with this extension. So, if you want to create a message file, you put the create message file and add message description commands inside a file ending in .msgf, and it will go ahead and build a .msgf object. Here are all the SQL pseudo sources, right? So
There it is. Yeah.
or procedure, which ends up being a program. You have a extension of SQL PRC, and it will, and in there you put the create replace procedure and whatever alter and whatever else you want to put in. All the commands that will end up building that procedure.
Okay, so to sum it up, I have to have a high-level directory. Inside a project, I have to have a set of directories, and in our case, the directories means source files like RPG or CL or SQL, etc. And inside those directories, I have to have the actual rules file with the
Yes.
dependencies, right?
Yep.
Got it. Okay, that
So
makes
after
sense.
you initially migrate, you will have a QSQL source, a QDDS source, a QRPG source. And yes, those will have the members inside them, and you would create a rules.make in each of those directories saying this stream file can be built into this object, right? Using, object : type. And at the root, you would have a rules.make listing the
Directories.
source in them, right?
Right.
That's the general thing. And then I kind of showed you in my example, you're not limited to still calling things QDDS source, right? You can move things around, say this, all the stuff that builds this service program, I'm going to put in this directory because it makes sense, right? So you can now break out of, being limited by QSYS naming conventions.
Right. Yep. Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I think this call here is going to be a really good resource for the future. A lot of information in it. This is great. Thank you, Edmund, and thank you, Ravisankar, for asking the question about Bob. So I know this a little bit better now. We have just a couple of minutes. I think our next call is going to be October 4th. That's Friday, October 4th. And let me ask Liam if after that, if the 18th looks good for you after the 4th. You could tell me later.
I can tell you later.
You can tell me later. That's fine. So the 4th, though, is going to be the next one. We're skipping a few weeks for conferences. I'm going to be at Navigate in Florida.
Hope to see you there. Can I ask a question of the group?
Yeah.
You know, Project Explorer and Bob have kind of been slow in taking off. Does anybody have any, ideas why it's been, hasn't reached that much popularity? Is it just a matter of awareness? Is there a matter of some limitations?
Well, how long has ILE been available and some folks still aren't using procedures?
Okay. All right. So, yeah. So if there is something that you think we could do to, our goal is just to make all of you productive and have fun. I
Hey,
have fun.
Edmund, who is your ideal customer, so to speak, for Bob and the procedures you're showing here? Who's the ideal company or type of person or department?
Well, I guess someone who wants to move to Git and and wants to take advantage, say, VS Code tooling.
Uh-huh.
So they have to have at least the willingness to make that migration step. So
Okay.
I know there's a lot of people cannot move their stuff out of QSys. Maybe it's tied to, a source control on QSys. But if you're willing to move to Git, you're going to have to get into stream files anyways. And here is a lot of value.
So if you're willing to move your source into stream files, if you're shown the path to do so, if you're shown the way to do so, and you're willing to move to stream files and have a more modern source code.
Right.
Setup. Okay.
Yeah, you can modernize at your own pace thereafter, but that is the one big step people have to be willing to take, and I think you get a lot of value for it.
Yep,
Yeah,
great. Well,
I think it's terrific. But I think part of the problem is it is such a different paradigm from what a lot of folks are used to. It's turning everything on its head, and so it can be a very difficult uptake for folks who have been using PDM for 30 years.
by the way, it's about time to stop, and we can keep a couple of more minutes, and anyone who has to leave, we understand.
Yeah.
But for people who are willing to use VS Code in the first place, so they're going out of PDM, the developer's willing to but this means that like a whole department, everyone has to be on board. Is that right? Like,
Yeah, because once the source is in IFS, then you can't use PDM anymore.
Right.
It'd be painful to do so.
Yep. So if everyone's willing to use VS Code or something like it, then it'll be all right for them, it sounds like. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. But it's definitely to prepare a department for the next generation who's used to using Git, is used to using the stream file.
Right, because now you bring some hothead out of college, like it feels normal to them, right? This is how they do Python and everything else.
Yeah, they won't have to deal with the source members in that. I think our legacy ways.
They're using Git like they're used to, they're editing like they used to, everything feels normal.
Yeah, good. So kind of like, good. Rahul, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question here. Ravi and myself, we have been experimenting and using VS Code. But I'll give you one example. Today itself, he was creating a command, and I would say we were creating a command, and it was not getting compiled. Okay. And at the end of the day, what we had to do is we had to go to the 50 source member, take F4, and then we found that we put our parameter at the wrong place. So with the VS Code, what I think is you need to remember, or you need to know what parameter should be there, because I think there is no prompt.
Well, actually, Liam can step in there and say on his CL extension, the CL language server, I think you have some prompting. Is that right, Liam?
Yeah, you can prompt on, you can get the parameters to a command, yes. In the CL document, yep. But it's not like a form that comes up or anything of such. But you can. There is content assist, I think, is
So can you show us if possible?
Right, so you see there's a CL extension. Right, CLLE language tools, we have to have that installed, right? And now I'm gonna go up on a limb. I don't know if I've done this before, but if I were to create a new file, call it sample dot CLLE. And then so Liam, what do I have to do if I wanted to get a command? Let's say I want to do just
type yeah, displable. Well, displable is a boring one. Do something like create bound RPG or run SQL space.
Yeah.
And then control space.
Control space. Oh, I see loading happening. Okay, there's all my things, and will it tell me? Yeah, oh, it even knows what the constants are in there. Right, so it's not quite the F4, but you can certainly see, somehow.
Correct.
And to pop that menu, we have to take control space, right?
Control space, that's what I'm using, just like any other content assist.
Okay, cool.
And that was Apple, yeah.
Okay.
And I think the point someone raised that it is a little bit different paradigm, so that's why like this is a little bit different form of F4. So definitely it will take some time, but yes, we have been whatever we have found, it's very helpful.
Yeah, right, and you can always jump into 5250 and do that prompt if you need to.
Yep.
Okay, I'll back to you, Alan. I know we're out of time.
Yeah, that's okay. This is great. This is really good stuff here. I should just ask, since it's the last call for a few weeks, was there any other question that people had, including a beginner? Maybe you didn't know they were going to a Bob seminar, but this actually was great, Edmund, because I didn't really understand it myself. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate this. Anyone with any basic type questions? Well, that's good. This is part of the ecosystem. VS Code is part of it. And now I understand the role that Bob plays. So people ask us, we'd like to adopt Git. Okay. Well, are you ready to really get modern here and work with the stream files? And there's a way to do it. And it exists. There's a way to do this that's actually people are using. And that will work. And you've shown that to us, Edmund. I really appreciate your being here. And I saw someone else from IBM who was here, and anyone who joined.
Sanjula should really get a lot of credit.
Sanjula, thank you. Are you a developer of this?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Yeah, I'm
Thank you.
developer here with IBM, working alongside Edmund on this project. So yeah, it's good to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sanjula. Am I going to see you somewhere like in Toronto or somewhere like that, or Florida?
Yeah, you can definitely catch me at Navigate Toronto. I'll be doing a few sessions even on Project Explorer as well. So any more questions, people can ask me there. Yeah.
Okay, so we got to remember that some modern development techniques, including Project Explorer with Sanjula in Toronto. I think Toronto is going to be a very special conference. I kind of like feel it amping up with all the IBM people and Canadian friends who haven't had a conference in a while. So I really. Hey, no jokes. No jokes. No Canada jokes. All right. Fantastic. Edmund, Sanjula, everyone who joined, and Liam for helping to arrange all this. I really appreciate it. I think this is going to be kind of a little bit of a breakthrough about Bob and that whole way of working. So thanks a lot, everybody. And the next meeting will be on October 4th, and we'll see about after that. And I'll see some of you in Florida next week.
Thanks
Alan.
A lot. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.